Dude, the gi, it is if you don't know what you're doing with it, you will get absolutely annihilated. If you do, it is such a weapon. It is such a weapon. MMA has something of an anti-gi attitude. In part, no one uses it anymore for reasons I'll describe in a second. And in all other parts, a lot of people who like jiu-jitsu, who are MMA fans, they like the no-gi variety. And that's totally understandable. Eddie Bravo has done a pretty good job of developing a system and a criteria that is much easier to understand if you've never trained or if you have nominal amounts of training. On the other hand, here's just the reality of it. Unless you count ADCC or like Nogi Worlds, which is an IBJJF tournament, all the A-list competitors compete in the gi. You know, Gordon Ryan's the exception here, but all the A-list competitors do the gi. Maybe Craig Jones is another. It's just a handful of names. Really, sport jiu-jitsu is gi jiu-jitsu, and everything else is an offshoot of it. Now, it turns out that offshoot has greater market potential, but here's the reality with the gi. A lot of people, when they start training, they put it on and they hate it. Oh, they hate it so much because it's hot and it's heavy and you feel like you're getting trapped. And if you don't know what you're doing in the gi and you're going up against somebody who does, your gi is weaponized against you. You're getting pulled and turned and flipped and choked, and it's awful. And you don't know gripping systems. It's just the worst. But once you cross through that horizon, the experience that I had was I love the gi. And I love the gi because it slows everything down for the most part. You can still have fast gi matches. But in general, you can't just athletic your way out of something. You have to technical your way out of something, number one. Number two, I always like to break a sweat. The gi really helps with that. Not that no gi doesn't, but I particularly like that. But I think three, remember, with the gi, you have virtually every submission you would have without it. Some of the heel hooks and stuff obviously goes away. But even now, they're bridging the gap with like there are these Estima locks and toe holds. And plus you have all the extra gi submissions on top. Like I'm a big fan of the bow and arrow choke or double lapel or, you name it. There's a million chokes that are very gi specific, and you can still do rear naked chokes. You can still do arm bars. You can still do omoplatas. You can still do triangles. And you just have this extra layer of complexity put on top. And I always thought it was super interesting that here was a guy wearing a gi going up against guys. Sometimes they wore gis. Most of the time they didn't. Hoist had a match with him, which we're not going to look at, where he had no gi top because the gi top can be really weaponized against you. And I always loved it, dude. And I've always thought, man, here is such an unexplored opportunity. When the UFC went state to state to state to state, and to an extent country to country, and they were legalizing MMA by getting it, a state athletic commission to sanction it, what that did was it homogenized the rules because it didn't allow for innovation. They would go to a place and they would say, hey, Missouri, hey, Florida, hey, Texas, hey, New York, these are the rules of MMA. And it was rules that essentially was their product by and large. Now, other promotions can get involved in the same way, but it stifled innovation. And Japan has a boxing commission, but did not have any commission overseeing Pride. So Pride could just do whatever the hell they want. And so they would have this judoka versus boxer, gi versus no gi. And I'm not here to tell you that I think that all MMA should be two people in a gi. It's not what I'm saying. What we have now should basically just be the default version. What I am saying is I think a real opportunity has been missed by the stifling of innovation where you can't even get the option unless you go to some place where it's not really regulated to have somebody do what Yoshida was doing. And I miss it. I miss it straight up. I really always found it super fascinating. It's like we knew he was a good judoka, but what if you got like a really good jiu-jitsu player who was in his prime, who could strike a little bit, who was tough? Because Yoshida was tough as shit. What could you get out of that? And people always say, oh, it would, in all cases slow the match down. You'll see that's not really correct. Or in all cases, it would make the sport about what jiu-jitsu wanted it to be by having the gi have an influence. I think it would actually advance gripping in a way where, if you take jiu-jitsu out of sport context and put it in MMA, what it does is it distills it down to its essentials. So it makes it basic in the sense that you have basic positions, but people who are better at those fundamentals succeed. But it also kind of advanced it in terms of the metagame and other techniques. I think you'd see the exact same thing with gripping. It would change gripping to an extent, but there's just not been enough of it. And so I think it's a real opportunity that's been missed, unfortunately. So, so this is where we are with this. That brings us to this moment here. Now, one last word on the gi, and then we're going to take a look at some evidence here. There's all different kinds of gis. There's Taekwondo gis, there's judo gis, there's jiu-jitsu gis, and there's a lot of overlap, but there are some key differences. Also, it should be noted in combat sambo, and in sambo, I think more generally, they wear with something called the kurtka. And there is gripping allowed on that, both I think on the belt and the jacket itself. It's like a gi top. It's built a little bit differently. It's got like a little hangover around the shoulder girdle. But in any case, you see some of that. But they have wrestling shoes. They don't wear pants. Anything like that. Okay, so there's different kinds of gis. The gi, I'm just going to show you this real quickly. The gi that Yoshida uses is a Mizuno gi, which is a judo-specific gi. If you've never trained before, judo gis, I think they call them like double weave. You have to talk to a gi expert. But like gis, a judo gi is thick and heavy, and it weighs on you, man. A lot of people have trended towards the modern trend has been, let's get them as lightweight as possible, blah, blah, blah. I've got one here. I'll show you. This is a standard double weave, I believe, normal gi. This is not the Mizuno that he has, but it's common. And you can see it's kind of thick. Let me put it up close so you can see the fabric here a little bit. Here, hold on. Like that. See that? A little bit. And then you got this lapel, and the lapel is very, very strong. It's very super, super thick. So when the lapel goes across your throat and someone's pulling it, it can do some serious damage. So this is what you would call a typical either single or double weave. Again, I have to go and check exactly what the make of it is. This is one of your newer lightweight gis. This is one of your newer lightweight gis. And you can look at the difference here. Hang on. See the difference there? The lapel is still thick, but look at the fabric. Much thinner and much lighter. I actually thought I would love these. I actually hate them. They're nice gis. This is an Adidas gi. The Adidas makes wonderful gis. Some people love them. But what I have found is that if you have a lightweight gi, somebody can, so if you don't know this, you can't grip the inside of someone else's sleeve. You can only grip the outside. This is called a cat's paw grip. Someone who has a good grip will get this, or what they might do with something called a pistol grip, where they'll take the top of it, so your hand is down here, and they'll take the top like this, and then they'll wrap it, so it's like this. Did you get someone with like a Nogueira grip with a lightweight gi, and they get this? You're in trouble, bucko. You're not going to get your arm back for a while. It's going to be hard, very hard. And even with the lapel might be the same make, but they can you can wrap literally more fabric into your hand, right? You can fit more. See that? I can just keep going, versus if the gi is thick, I can't get as much in my grip as a consequence. So I actually don't like the lightweight gis, because someone who's real nasty and aggressive with their gripping is going to give you a tough time. Conversely, if you can get a good grip on the kind of gi that Yoshida has, you can do some damage with it as well. So it's harder to get one, but if you can get a good bite, cat's paw. By the way, there's one called a motorcycle grip. All different kinds. You can do it below. You can also do one below the sleeve. You can do it above the sleeve. You can do a lot of different kinds, but you can do it behind the elbow. In fact, it's funny. Makoto Takimoto, you guys have never heard of him. He was a gold medalist in the 2000 Olympic Games in judo. He also fought in Pride. I think he fought Frank Trigg. He actually wore a gi that was up to the, it stopped here. So it was just a little bit longer than my t-shirt here. And it stopped right there. And so what that would effectively do is he could still use the lapel if he wanted to in some kind of a way, but you couldn't grip around the wrist and you couldn't grip around the back of the elbow. Those are the two big places where you're going to grip someone, right around the wrist, right behind the elbow, on the sleeve. And then there's sort of all different kinds of grips depending on what you want to do for the lapel. You can grab all the way in the back here. You can grab to the side. Really depends on what you're trying to do. Okay? Let's go through some of this and take a look at exactly how Yoshida did it. Um, Again, what I'm going to show you is not in every case the most sophisticated example of how someone could use a gi, but it's precisely my point. It's so tantalizingly close to somebody who could have gotten out there and really showed you. But nonetheless, we'll take a look at some of this. So let me pull this up here. So here we are in the guard, in Don Frye's guard, and there's not a whole lot to say about it, but you can notice right away he's holding on to the gi here a little bit, and pay attention to Yoshida right away. Here he is. He's gripping the inside of his gi. How do you do? And you've all sort of famously seen the Ezekiel choke of Olenek. Let me see if I can show you how you do it. All right. So this is your sleeve, right? What you would do is you would just take it. This is the head of someone. You grab around it like this, and then you just cut to the inside. And this is it. That's how you do it. So you grab. The head will be inside the circle here. And you just cut to the inside, right? And then you can squeeze out like that. And you have to make sure you have a good bite. Remember, you can grab the inside of your sleeve on your own gi. For someone else's gi, you have to go outside, and then you lose it. It doesn't have the same level. But when you come inside, right? Here we are. And you can cut it like that, right? So inside on the top, this is how you do it. How does he do it? He stays on top, does he not? Yeah. So there you go. Now keep in mind something. When you have the back like this and you have fabric between you and the other person's body, it's not that you can't shake them off. Some of the same rules still apply. But in every one of these cases, the gi is going to offer a set of positives and a set of negatives. There's going to be both in every case. In this particular case, it's going to help you lock into and keep that symmetry with someone's back. So here he is. Pay close attention. He's going to feed his own gi lapel around the throat of Frye. Watch. There it is. See that? Look at that. 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 That's sort of like that's sort of, I'm not sure what the name of that choke is, because a bow and arrow would be someone doing that to your own throat with your own gi. This is his own lapel from like back mount. And he's got it from this single chicken wing position that they call that, from which he gets a little bit later, which you can see here. So he's got one arm in, he's got two arms in, and he's using his two fingers to pull down the throat. But the whole idea would be to get the gi lapel around the back, and then he would want to push the head forward with another. But he's got a straitjacket system, right, Danaher style. This right arm has the left hand. This left hand has essentially a right arm going through under the throat. Isn't that brilliant? Yeah, you can see him change colors there from back mount. He's pulling hard. He just doesn't quite have it, because if you can get a little bit of space to grip the gi there, it'll protect you. You can see Frye pulling on the gi. Look closely. Remember, positives and negatives, your opponent can pull on it too. He's going to come up a little bit high here. Still trying to go for the throat, but he misses. And now he gets on top. Now here he is, going right back to the Ezekiel. Remember, put it in one more time here. Come around the head. I'm left-handed, so I would never usually do it on this side. And then you come here. So now you're choking the throat, just like that. Just like that, okay? That's what he's trying to do. Pay attention here. He's got an arm here, and I can't quite tell, but it looks like with the arm, he's not really coming across Yoshida. He's grabbing his own fabric. You'll see that a lot with arm bars. People they'll get the bite, not simply by clamping down what they would no gi, but what they'll do is then they'll grab their own gi, right? They'll grab their own lapel, and then they'll use that to hold it, because that's going to be a hard grip to break. And if you pin your elbow down and you've gripped this, man, that thing is very, very secure. Plus, if you are wearing a gi, it gets even harder to pull out. Right? So it just secures the arm bar a little bit more. And remember, he's wearing a gi. So inching your arm back, if you're Don Frye, is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be hard. Dude, the gi, if you don't know what you're doing with it, you will get absolutely annihilated. If you do, it is such a weapon. It is such a weapon. And that's it. What did we learn there? Some interesting ways where you could get the lapel to go across, how it causes friction for back control, how it might be hard to slip an arm out. Let's go to another one. First of all, already able to spin, and he's holding his own gi to hold it into place. Now, let's go there to adjust, but the gi is going to provide significant amount of friction. That's going to make it hard for anyone to get out of this. And here, you can wrap the gi underneath here. Now, he's only got the gloves, and he's got an arm in, but there's all kinds of chokes you could pull from there. So it adds a certain dimension of threat in these particular scenarios. I'm telling you, man, I think a promoter has missed the boat on the opportunities like this. So watch there. Watch how Hunt uses the gi against Yoshida here. He's going to grab the shoulders and nearly the lapel right there, hold it in place, because he's not, understand there, he didn't sprawl. He was able to grab the gi and post, which created enough distance for him to fire a knee up the middle. Again, if they can use the gi against you, it provides all different kinds of opportunities. So here he is working from guard. Now look at Yoshida. Hold on. Look at Yoshida right there, grabbing his own gi. See that? Grabbing his own lapel, because it's a very, very, very secure grip. It adds a degree of dimension to this that I just love to see play out. But consider something as he moves back. When you're here and you're in your gi, just watch how he's able to post his right hand. See this? See him posting this right hand? He's going to do that to kind of inch backwards, put his weight on top of Hunt to keep Hunt down, and then he's going to flip the other way to get the arm bar. See, inching back. He's keeping his weight down on that arm, and then he's just going to switch the other way once he's got a secure grip like that. Right? The gi will assist you. Yes, I mean, that's mostly a function of your weight, but the gi keeps the friction there the whole time. Plus, he was able to secure the grip by grabbing the lapel. Another great example of interesting use of the gi. Now, a couple of highlights I want to show you. Grabbing his own gi, see that? Grabbing his own gi to secure the position and bring the other arm across. Constantly, little tricky ways where grabbing the gi becomes a very, very pivotal moment. Drops him. Was this it? There he is grabbing the gi pant. Look at that from Vanderlei. But of course tries to get away, but the gi pants are holding him there. You see that? There's no submission there. It's too low, but it makes escaping significantly more difficult. You saw there with the whole pulling away, Vanderlei grabbing the pants to pull it to the side so he could make his own way through. It's an interesting test case. Let's go to, oh, here's one of my favorites. All right, so here's the key. This is what I wanted you to see. So here he is. He's grabbing his own sleeve, and he's cutting around, right? Watch this. Right there. This. I forget what they call this in pure judo. It's like a hakajimi mate something. I forget the exact name of it. He's doing a no-gi version of it. You're like, well, how can that be? Because he's wearing a gi. Because the real version of these requires you to have the other person wearing a gi, right? And you actually don't even need the gi yourself. What would happen is, look at this arm here. You would have one arm behind like that, but what he'd be doing is he'd ordinarily be grabbing, imagine if Tank was wearing a gi, he'd be grabbing one side. So this is Tank right here, right? He'd be grabbing this side of the lapel of Tank and pulling it across his throat like that, right? So that's what he'd be doing. And then with the other hand, he'd be driving behind and shoving Tank's head forward, right? I think they call it like a single arm wing, something like that. He's modifying it by grabbing his own sleeve. So he's taking his own sleeve rather than, there's supposed to be a lapel here. He's just grabbing his own sleeve and then coming around rather than grabbing someone's lapel and then coming behind the head. He just totally did it no gi. Look at this. It's amazing. And then stretches him. Brilliant, dude. That is brilliant. Look here. Look at that. See that? Hooks his own gi, and then he's also going to use his legs to stretch out. And you might be asking, where's the choke? I'll show you where the choke is. Hold on. Look at that, grabbing his own gi and then twisting the other one around. So one of your shoulders goes into your neck. Obviously, this side is cut off with the arm / the gi. Your head is getting pressed forward. It's getting crunched forward. Gi's on this side, and then you're getting stretched out with the legs of Yoshida. Because look at Abbott now, right? He's kind of balled up. Watch this. He gets stretched. See that? Bro, that is painful. This is what I'm talking about, man. You don't see stuff like this. Literally, you don't see stuff like this anymore. They don't allow people to do this. And it's a whole new level of invention and creativity. Imagine if you had two guys who were both really good grippers, really good use of the gi, but they could still be tough and fight and everything else like that. What kind of stuff you'd get? How cool is that? That's so cool, man. I'd never seen someone adapt it like that with the arm in and the same way. Usually it's with a lapel the whole time. Amazing. Amazing what that it can do. Really, really cool stuff. Here it is. He's got double unders, head on the inside, right? This should be easy. Boom, turns him in a corner. Simple, academic. And he's got the far side underhook right here. See that? He switches to the head. There he goes with the gi right away. Ezekiel choke, bitches. Look at that. Look at the grimace on Tamura's face. Immediate tap. Look at this. So go back here. He gets the trip. Okay, he's got the near side underhook. Far side underhook, excuse me. All right, he's got double unders. He's going to take this one out and come around the bottom of the head. Like that. See that? Then he's going to take the other one out, and he's going to also double wrap the head because you want to secure the head with one, so that's the easiest arm to secure it with. Then you want to replace it with the other one, so then you could go back to the choke. So he replaces it like that, and immediately begins to go for the gi like that. Look at his fingers in there. He's going to just twist over and inside, just like that. So he's gripping his own gi, and he goes to the inside. Look at that choke. And he hides the fist under his bicep, so you can't kind of pull it out. And he just shreds him with it. Look at the face on that fool. He's having a very bad day. Ezekiel choke from half guard on top. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. That shit. How cool is that, man? So cool. So cool. You're not safe anywhere from his, if he's on your back, there's bow and arrow chokes, the whole 9 yards. On top, you can Ezekiel from half guard. From the back, you can single arm wing choke. All different kinds. You can use it as you did on Don Fry, just the lapel across the throat. Just so many different ways you can use the gi creatively. Very, very impressive stuff. Really creative, really interesting. Love this kind of experimentation idea in martial arts. You just don't see very much of it. See him holding his gi. See him holding his gi with his right arm? Go back. Watch the right arm there. There he is holding the gi because it's such a secure grip. So you're noticing here, there are ways to fight a guy who's wearing a gi if you're not, where the gi just can't be relevant. I know a lot of people are like, oh, if you watch this, then, you know, if your guy has a gi, it's such an advantage. It can be. Of course it can be. But against a good fighter who knows what he's doing, in this particular case, it means nothing. Everyone who thinks, oh, the gi is so much of an advantage, it's so this, that, and the other. It can be, of course. But the whole point is, we didn't really experiment enough to know the upper bound limits of it or what it does and doesn't do to a fight. The idea that in every case, it's the most, like, corrupting thing is not right, is not correct. So here he is, grabbing his own gi. See that? He's using that to pin the arm. Because if I have your arm around my head, if I grab my own gi, I'm going to seal that choke very tight. I'm not going to choke myself. Sorry, I shouldn't call it a choke. I'm going to seal that grip very tight so that your arm can't be pulled away, rather than just kind of, holding here and pinching or whatever, just, using my pinching. I can now grab it and then I can seal it almost completely shut. So now he can maintain control of the arm the entire time. See that? And then he's going to turn over and then go right into a triangle. Just like that. Set up by the grip. So, what's the lesson here? The lesson here is, look, man, there's There's been so much innovation and best practices involved in MMA. I don't want gi MMA to replace what we have. What we have is great. But what I'm saying is something's been lost, man. Something's been lost. How cool would it be to have another like alternate dimension or another organization across the world who could experiment with this kind of stuff, and not just with some scrubs, but with some good fighters on occasion? It'd be cool to see. I think we never really got that far. And I know some of you who've maybe never trained, or even if you did, you don't like the gi. The gi is one of those things you take. It's like beer when you're 13 years old, man. It's an acquired taste. You gotta work your way up to it. But if you do, ladies and gentlemen, you will be rewarded, because the possibilities and the creative opportunity, they're so high. It's so high once you really take that seriously.